The theme guiding our discussion today is Embrace Every Voice, Afghan Women Leading the Path Towards Inclusive Futures. This theme resonates highly with us since amplifying Afghan voices, particularly those of women, holds profound significance in the current turbulent times we navigate. Inclusion at its core embraces and celebrates the richness of our diverse experiences.
Aujourd'hui, une population autochtone diversifiée ainsi que d'autres peuples y résident. C'est dans le respect des liens avec le passé, le présent et l'avenir que nous reconnaissons les relations continues entre les peuples autochtones et autres personnes de la communauté montréalaise.
I would like to present to you all one of our moderators for this event, the Chief Executive Officer, Victoria Jahesh of the AWCM. Victoria's profound impact at the AWCM is marked by her unwavering commitment to advocacy and empowerment. I am honored to work alongside her. Please, without further ado, welcome Victoria.
Good afternoon. It is a pleasure to be gathered here with all of you this afternoon with the International Women's Day and celebrate the voice and experience of woman progress. Simply, the presence of the woman in this room is a testament to strengthen and resilience. And I want to thank you all for being here and taking the time out of your day. We must also amplify the voice of marginalized women, both locally and internationally, as their testimony are essential in advocating for their rights. Education and awareness play pivotal roles in fostering inclusion and empowering women. Initiatives such as mentorship programs, educationals and workshops and advocacy campaigns can create opportunities for women to thrive. By providing support and resources, women can overcome obstacles and realize their full potential. However, despite education being a fundamental right for all, specifically for women, and significant challenges actually persist globally for women. Indeed, in Afghanistan, it remains a victim of the world's blind eye. Afghanistan actually itself as a country, it remains a victim of world's blind eye. And it is our collective responsibility to shed light on the injustice and suffering faced by Afghans.
I now have the honor to present the president of the AWCM, Makai Aref. Makai has a master's degree in mathematics and physics. She works as a teacher in the schools for girls in Afghanistan for more than 20 years. With a profound understanding of the trials and hardships faced by immigrant women, Makai founded the AWCM of Montreal in 2002. Since then, she has worked tirelessly to lift up women and support immigrant women from all over the world. She has supported hundreds of women and their families within a wide range of needs. Please welcome Makai Aref.
Dear ladies, gentlemen, and esteemed guests, both of them online and present. خانم ها، آقایان، همه شما عزیزان خوش آمدید میگویم به مناسبت تجدید از روز جهانی زنان جهان به مناسبت روز 8 مارس همه شما را خوش آمدید میگویم.
Welcome and thank you for being here today to stand with Afghan women.
از شما که امروز اینجا هستید تا با زنان افغان همبستگی نشان دهید سپاسگزارم. تیم ما بر اهمیت گوش دادن و حمایت از هر صدای زن این درباره آن اطمینان حاصل کردن از این است که همه زنان به خصوص کسانی که اغلب نادیده گرفته یا ساکت شدن در شکل دهی به آینده سهیم باشند. این فقط درباره صحبت کردن نیست بلکه درباره انجام اقدامات عملی و واقعی است که نتایج محسوس و قابل لمس به همراه داشته باشد.
Our theme highlights the importance of listening and supporting every woman's voice. It's about making sure that all women, especially those who are often ignored or silenced, have a say in shaping the future. It's not just about talking, it's about taking real action that brings about tangible results.
وقتی میگوییم که هر صدا را در آغوش بگیریم، منظورمان این است که تجربیات و دیدگاه های متنوع زنان افغان را تشخیص داده ارزش دهیم. این کار تنها به افزایش آگاهی از چالش هایی که آنها روبرو هستند نمی پردازد، بلکه به ایجاد فرصت ها، راههایی که آنها را تقویت می کنند می پردازد. این درباره ترویج شامل شدنشان در همه ابعاد جامعه است.
When we say embrace every voice, we mean recognizing and valuing the diverse experiences and perspectives of Afghan women. This goes beyond simply acknowledging the challenges they face. It means actively working to create opportunities and solutions that empower them. It's about fostering inclusivity in every aspect of society.
برای تبدیل این هدف به فعالیت‌های عملی، مرکز زنان افغان متحد به اجرای فعالیت‌هایی که منجر به تغییرات فاعل قابل مشاهده و قابل اندازه‌گیر می شود، مرکز زنان افغان قصد دارد در حمایت از قوانینی که حقوق زنان و برابری جنسیت را حمایت می‌کنند بپردازد. یکی از زمینه‌های اصلی این تلاش آموزش است. ما فقط برای حق دختران برای گرفتن به مدرسه حرف نمیزنیم. ما اقدامات عملی همچون ایجاد فضای امن برای یادگیری، همکاری با مؤسسات و شرکای ملی و بین المللی برای فراهم کردن منابع حمایت از آموزش دختران را برنامه‌ریزی می‌کنیم.
To turn our theme into practical activities, the AWCM is committed to implementing initiatives that lead to visible and measurable changes. The AWCM will work towards influencing laws that support women's rights and gender equality. One key area is education. We're not just advocating for girls to go to school, we're planning concrete steps like set up safe spaces for learning and collaborating with international partners to provide resources and support for girls' education.
به عنوان مثال، بعضی از تعهد ما به نتایج قابل لمس، مرکز زنان افغان در حال حاضر دوره‌های خصوصی را در 3 منطقه مختلف از ولایت کابل، پروان اجرا می کند. این دوره‌ها دروس و مضامین اساسی را مانند ریاضی، انگلیسی، علوم دینی و دری را شامل می باشد. چون آموزش ابزار قدرتمند برای تقویت است و گام کلیدی به سوی از بین بردن موانع است که زنان افغان به آن روبرو هستند.
As an example and part of our commitment to tangible results, the AWCM is currently running private courses in 3 different regions of Kabul and Parwan provinces. These courses focus on essential subjects such as math, English, religion, and dowry. Why? Because education is a powerful tool for empowerment and it's a key step towards breaking down the barriers that Afghan women face.
در این دوره‌ها ما بیش از 120 دانش آموز را تحت پوشش قرار دادیم که به دلیل ممنوعیت نمی توانند در مدارس شرکت کنند و معلمان این دوره‌ها افراد هستند که با وجود لیاقت و با وجود شرایط بودن در حال حاضر از شغل خود محروم شدند. با ارائه آموزش در این دروس ضروری ما نه تنها یک شگاف آموزشی را پر می‌کنیم، بلکه این دانش آموزان را به دانش و مهارت‌هایی که درباره آینده آنها را راه‌های موفقیت را باز می‌کند تقویت می‌کنیم.
In these courses, we are covering around 120 students who, unfortunately, cannot attend regular schools due to education bans. The teachers conducting these courses are individuals who, despite being qualified, are currently banned from their jobs. By providing education in these crucial subjects, we are not only filling an educational gap, but also empowering these students with knowledge and skills that will open doors for their future.
این واقعیت است که چالش ها و مشکلات ناشی از دست داشتنش قدرت توسط رژیم طالبان در افغانستان وجود دارد، اما این موضوع مهم است که نباید این چالش ها و مشکلات تلاش های ما را متوقف ساخته و ما را ناامید کند. با استفاده از این فرصت بگذارید فقط درباره تغییر صحبت نکنیم، بیایید به طور فعال در فعالیت‌ها شرکت کنیم که نتایج واقعی و قابل مشاهده به دنبال دارند. با همکاری در ایجاد این آینده بیشتر جا افتاده و برای زنان افغان همگی با گام‌های عملی تبدیل کردند. کلماتمان به اقدام واقعی می توانیم روی زندگی تعداد زنان بیشمار تاثیر مثبت بگذاریم.
It is true and crucial to acknowledge the challenges posed by the Taliban regime in Afghanistan, but it's equally important not to let these challenges paralyze our efforts. As we gather here today, let's not just talk about change, let's actively participate in activities that will bring about real, visible results. Let's work together to create a more inclusive future for Afghan women. By taking practical steps and turning our words into actions, we can make a positive, lasting impact on the lives of countless women.
از تعهد و همکاری شما به این موضوع سپاسگزارم. همراه با یکدیگر در این سفر قدم بگذاریم و هر صدا را در آغوش بگیریم و راهی را به سوی یک آینده بیشتر و اجتماع قدرتمند برای زنان افغان هدایت کنیم.
Thank you for your commitment and collaboration in reaching this goal. Let's embark on this journey together, embracing every voice and leading the way to a more inclusive and empowered future for Afghan women. Thank you.
Thank you, but now, thank you. Now we have some video about that classes in Kabul, in Parwan, in the port of Karga. We should see that the video we received from Kabul, the activity, the woman, the girl, this is very important for my life to set up such a much woman to come to open, but they use their basement to free of charge for that number group as much they are able, but we wish from Mr. Tawfiq to create it or open that video. Thank you again. And again want to say happy Women's Day for all of you, special for very, very important and how do you say, brave woman in Afghanistan. I'm proud of Afghanistan.
به نام آن که سینم از او یافت فلک چون بش زمین آرام از او یافت. بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. من سلطان امین هستم، یکی از شاگردان کورس که خانم مکای عارف ایجاد کردن. من در این کورس بر من توسط استاد بهیجه جان مضامین مکتب و انگلیسی و ریاضی تدریس می شود و ما از خانم مکای تشکری می کنیم که زمینه را برای دخترای افغان که بسیار دردیده هستند، اصلا مکتب رفتن نمیتونن و شرایط بسیار برشان سخت است، فراهم کردن. جهان سپاس.
پشتو، دری، قرآن کریم، انگلیسی همه چیز را آموختم.
چیزایی را که خودت ایج آموختی یا وقتی که آمدی به خواندن از این بیاموزی، آیا چی بار آمدی از طرف فامیلت یا خودت به علاقه‌مندی خود طرف کورس آمدی؟
نه، خودم به علاقه‌مندی خودم آمدیم.
علاقه داری که ادامه بتون درس؟
بله.
ادامه بتون تا که بخوانید. لغات دار بودم گفته بودم بچه ها لغات یک جمله نوشته میکنید ملکی نوشته کردن شما بلنسید بداری خیلی هستک یادتر یک نفر از شما برسن از تختر مینه برسن خانم مکای جان عارف به شما صورت میگیره. خانم دلسوز و مهربان از شهر مونتریال کانادا میشه، ازش یک تشکری خاص میکنیم. خداوند نجات در دنیا آخرت نصیب. لقب منبر بزرگوار اسلام قبل از بسط راستگو و امین دوستیشید. سوال 38.
هستم یک تن از شاگردان صوت آموزی. گذشته ها ما نمیتونستیم که مکتب بریم، فامیل های ما قیدگیر بود، ما رو نمیمانده مکتب. اگر فامیل ما میماند بیادر ما نمیمانده که میگفت چی میکنی شما مکتب میری، دختر هستین شما رو به درس خواندن چی. حالا اینجا که میایم استاد ما خوب زن است، اینجا درس میخوانیم، خیلی پیشرفت کردیم، یاد گرفتیم خط خواندن، املا رو یاد گرفتیم و میخواهیم به ما کمک زیاد شود در اینجا از کتاب.
سلام به تمام دوستایی که از طریق ویدیو مرا بیننده هستند. فاطمه شیرزاد هستم، نماینده سنتر زنان در افغانستان. به همکاری مکای جان حارف، رئیس سنتر زنان در مونتریال کانادا، که در مدت 2.5 سال بالاتر از این خانم‌ها را حمایت میکنه و خانم‌هایی که در بخش صنایع دستی کار و فعالیت کردن همیشه همکار بوده و همیشه اینا رو حمایت کردن و فعلا هم یک کورس ایجاد کردیم در داخل خانه با همکاری مکای جان حارف از سنتر زنان کانادا که به تعداد 10 شاگرد است. در این کورس ما که مضامین مکتب آموزش میبینن، دخترکایی هستند که از صنف 6 از مکتب باز ماندن فعلا.
So our next panelist is Tamarak Veral. We're honored to introduce you, and Tamarak been active in the struggle to end violence against women for over 57 years. She's also an English teacher and the winner of the inaugural Spirit Award for World Pulse, a safe social network with a global mission to end the suppressions of women's voices. She has done and continues to do all that she can do to lift the spirits of women who have been broken due to life events and circumstances and fight for their rights.
I started counting when we reached a half century of broken promises. We've realized that the true freedom for women in an egalitarian society, a global society, involves the dissolution of patriarchy. And at this time in the history of the world, the glaring control made through dominance in all of its forms and the extreme control and punishment of women remain in place. The current treatment of women and girls in Afghanistan is being held up as an example and a warning, just as women in Iran being held in prison, women and girls still being beaten and raped everywhere, a world economy which enforces free labor of women, and all of these brutal wars. I'm still in touch with many of the women that I've been working with for all this time. Some of us are still here. Many of us are not. And those of us who are consider it essential that the changes that we've been working for not be lost, that the history of all of the ways that we're suppressed be known, and that the story of women, of our lives, our abilities, our accomplishments, the places and ways in which we have been respected throughout time, that these be known. I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. Patriarchy is enforced intentionally to hold a current system in place, a system that demands free labor from women in a money system. The accomplishments of women are intentionally hidden to maintain the myth that men have a right to control. Generations of boys are still being taught that they have the right and duty to control women.
So our next, I'm gonna be honored to introduce our next guest speaker today. Is Professor Dipti Gupta. She's professor, researcher, independent documentary filmmaker, with a special interest in social and women's issue. She teaches in the Department of Cinema Communications at Dawson College, Montreal. She also teaches art forms of Bollywood cinema at Concord University. She serves on the board of Tisri Dunia Theatre, a Montreal-based culturally diverse theater company. Please, Professor Dipti.
I actually prepared some stories that could actually connect with all of you. Maybe, that would be a nice way to create some kind of connections through the stories and experiences that we all share also. I really would like to thank Victoria and all the people over here. And I was noticing how gorgeous you all are. What a fabulous day to celebrate us all being together. Thank you, Victoria. And I also would like to again acknowledge the land that we are standing on, the fact that we are custodians of this land that we have been given or we share with the indigenous population. I would like to remember all the women right now who are trying to, in Gaza or Afghanistan or in certain parts of the world, who are trying to feed their children, who are trying to clothe their children and still survive, to be some of them who are pregnant, who are actually giving birth to children, and all kinds of struggles that they are sharing also. However, in living in Montreal also, we all face all kinds of challenges. As people who are activists, you will always receive a kind of backlash. You will be told, like, Victoria was saying, or Tamara was saying, or, Mara was, all of them were saying, is like, there constantly is people who would call you all kinds of names and so on.
Thank you so much, Professor Dipta. It's really we moved by your speech, and it's true that we have to showcase all this political issue with the theater, so people would understand better. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate. So I'm honored to also introduce our next panelists. So our next panelist, guest speaker, it's Vida Ibodi. So she's the Prairies and North Advisor in the Prime Minister's Office. Vida Ibodi is a skilled political staffer with extensive expertise in political communications.
I think you guys are often the examples that are used across discussions when we look at, what are we doing for the most vulnerable? But ultimately, I think it's still the same advice, which is that it's the organizing, it's the conversations with community members. And I appreciate the context is quite different in Afghanistan, but the advice is still the same, which is that we need to organize and understand and meet with one another and work together to determine what we need to do to ensure that we are, fighting back. We say for, Iran, for a lot of Iranian women, we've been saying Zan Zindagi Azadi, and I hope that we can have that same level of fighting and pushing back for ensuring the rights of women and girls in Afghanistan as well.
So it would be my pleasure and honor to introduce our next panelists. So our next panelist is Lauren Oates. Lauren holds a BA honors in international development from McGill University, an MA in human security and peace building from Royal Roads University, and a PhD in language and literacy education from the University of British Columbia.
This might be a bit different in tone from the previous remarks. It's maybe a little bit more technical because that's kind of the space I live in. Our organization, Canadian Women for Women in Afghanistan, we celebrated our 25th anniversary last year. So we've been working in Afghanistan since the time of the first Taliban regime, and then the 20 years in between, and then the changes since August of 2021. And we focus on education. So, these reflections are really focused on education, because we're convinced that that's, one of the most crucial rights that's being denied to women, with the most implications for actually all their other rights. So one of the things we see is simply the economic situation in the country, which is, I think, properly described as in a crisis stage. and all the poverty that has stemmed from that for women and girls and their families is a huge impediment to education. I do have another question. Thank you so much. It was really very important information that you have been sharing. And we have to actually, know what are the challenges and problem, and currently facing in Afghanistan in regards to the internet. I know that there's no electricity. I mean, it's very problematic with electricity and how they can, be able to also connect to the internet. But the way that you process, I mean, it's really, they have to have access to the some sort of, Spotify, if I'm not mistaken, with hotspot, I'm sorry. And they will have, the access to the internet, to the online education. So my next question is going to be reflecting on your involvement in empowering Afghan girls through education. What are some key insights or observations you might share, and what hopeful perspectives do you see for the futures of Afghan girls' education in Afghanistan? Yeah, thanks for that question. And actually, to help me answer it, if we can just go to that slide before this one and give you some examples of what we've been doing in response to what we're hearing from women and girls around what they need. And so, like I said, poverty is affecting a larger and larger proportion of the population. So they need help buying devices to get online, connectivity, power banks, things like that. So I'm going to introduce our next guest speaker is Mr. Saroj Hassan. So Mr. Hassan Saroj has been the ambassador of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan to Canada since 2019 until 2021. And he has led the distinguished career in the Afghan public services for over 20 years, including a role as the acting director of the Human Rights Department. He has been a passionate advocate for Canadians to help in end gender apartheid and other issues facing women in Afghanistan and beyond.
Today, of course, we also celebrate and honor the dedication, courageousness, and resilience of women and girls in the face of many unparalleled challenges and restrictions. Afghan women stand at the forefront of the struggle for the human rights of all Afghans. And they have been basically leading the civil society resistance against the Taliban. In terms of what can be done collectively, very briefly, beyond, of course, showing solidarity, more specifically on your question, following the tragic developments in Afghanistan in August 2021, our work has shifted towards new priorities, including humanitarian assistance, helping with resettlement efforts, and consular services to our growing diaspora community. So we have placed a special focus on providing consular support and services to our community, not only in Canada, but also in the United States. As we all know, our missions in the States ceased operations in March 2022. And since then, we have been providing consular services to our community in the entire North America. While we remain committed, of course, to providing various types of consular services, but there are some challenges. Just to give you some examples, for instance, due to a lack of passport booklets, blank passport booklets, we have not been able to issue a new passport. And alternatively, we are basically extending the machine-readable passports for our community. And also, there are some services that require a kind of confirmation and verification from Kabul. And since we do not recognize the Taliban and we do not have any communications with Kabul, it's very difficult for us to provide those services to our community. So in that context, we have been working with our Canadian colleagues in various departments to see if we can waive some of the requirements for the paperwork in different phases of settlement for the newcomers. And unfortunately, in some cases, we have been able to agree on new arrangements, and our Canadian colleagues have been very much helpful and supportive in terms of accommodating our requests and in terms of basically showing flexibility. And I think that waiving maybe some of the requirements when it comes to the entire post-arrival settlement process will be very much helpful for our community. And taking this opportunity, of course, I wish to thank the government of Canada for continued humanitarian aid, resettlement support, or resettlement efforts, and also the advocacy efforts in support of women and girls. And of course, as we move forward, my team and I at the Embassy of Afghanistan here in Ottawa, and also our colleagues in Toronto and Vancouver, remain committed to working with all of you, with the Afghan, Canadian, and international partners to facilitate our collective efforts in support of women and girls. And بسیار کوتاه روز جهانی زنان یک بار دیگه با استفاده از این فرصت خدمت همه شما خجسته میگم. با استفاده از این فرصت از تلاش‌ها و فعالیت‌های مرکز زنان افغانستان در مونترال، از رهبری مرکز خانم عارف، خانم جهش و همه همکارای گرامیتان ابراز امتنان میکنم. همصدایی و همبستگی شما با زنان و دختران افغانستان و برنامه شما در داخل افغانستان برای دختران و زنان افغانستان و همچنین برنامه‌هایتان در حمایت از هموطنانی که اخیراً به کانادا آمدن قابل ستایش است. و برای همه شما در تمام عرصه‌های کاری آرزوی موفقیت میکنم. تاسو ټولو ته د سلامتی او بریالیتوب هیله کوم. ډیره مننه. بسیار تشکر.
Our next guest speaker is, I'm going to introduce, and I'm honored to introduce Khalida Jan. Dr. Khalida Nasri, Executive Director of the Afghan Youth Engagement and Development Initiative, oversees organization operations, leadership, and successes. Under her guidance, IED, or the Afghan Youth Engagement and Development Initiative.
Recently, on February 26th, Richard Bennett, who's the UN Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in Afghanistan, released his long-awaited report to the UN Human Rights Council. And the important thing about this report is he provided very clear evidence for why the situation of gender persecution in Afghanistan should be characterized as gender apartheid. And so that's something that, was very important and a lot of people were waiting for. And so in terms of the Afghanistan crisis, Canada has been acting, but it's been acting very slowly when it's come to addressing the different facets of the crisis. And so the first thing Canada needs to do is recognize the gender apartheid regime in Afghanistan instead of waiting for other countries to do it first. Because Canada's policies, often they're a follower and not a leader, and they need to really just lead in terms of advocating for Afghan women. And but unfortunately, as many people who might have been in the community organizing space know, that Canada's approach to the Afghanistan crisis has unfortunately been a lethargic approach, a bit of a lazy approach that views itself as doing Afghans a favor, for opening our doors, and sort of a white savior role that Canada plays very well. And this does reflect actually the same white feminism that led to the occupation of Afghanistan by NATO forces in the first place.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's really very true. And I'm totally agree with you. We do see the same, challenges, systemic barriers, specifically, the Quebec province, with all the changes and all the clause and law that come in, like, into force, these days, like Bill 21, Bill 96, etc. And I completely understand the challenges. It's really, it's not easy, to handle, but we wish for the best. So I want to just introduce to everybody that Khalida Jan will take the lead. She is our co-moderator for this session, and she will introduce the remaining panelists, including Shugufa Jan. I see Qudsiya Jan and Rubina Jan that they're joining us as a testimony. So Shugufa Jan will be one of our panelists, and I think Rubina and Qudsiya, they're joining us as a testimony. So please continue, and then I believe, I just want to let you know that there's one message from the special representative of the Canadian Heritage, from Mrs. Amira El-Gawabi, that we want to also release. So maybe after Shugufa will speak, then we will just, read this with one of our, volunteer, and then you continue with your, remaining panelists, please.
So Shigufa John, welcome. So Shigufa Donish is an Afghan Canadian journalist who currently works for Global News as a digital broadcast journalist. She served as a news anchor and host of political programs for Tolo News from 2016 to 2021. And she's been named a Meta Fellow by Journalists for Human Rights in recognition of her exceptional contribution to her field. So we're very honored to have Shigufa John with us today.
If I think about my experience for the few months when I newly come here to Canada, almost for 4 months, I was isolating myself at home and I was crying. I was not able to accept what happened to me and what happened to thousands of Afghans in Afghanistan. And this trauma and this mental health problem will affect lots of Afghan immigrants. And I think this is important to support these Afghan women or Afghan immigrants who come here and they face this kind of challenge.
Now we have a testimonial from one of our testimonial speakers. So I'm going to introduce Qudsiya Popalzai. So she was born in Afghanistan, but is currently residing in Toronto. Qudsiya holds a Bachelor of Arts and Law degree from the American University of Afghanistan. Her professional career began working on a rule of law stabilization project in Afghanistan through Tetra Tech. And since then, she's held roles supporting various organizations.
I was born in Pakistan and I was, my primary years of life were shaped in Pakistan, but then I was moved to Afghanistan when I was in class 6. So the reality really hit me when I moved to Afghanistan, when I saw that the girls, precisely when I was in school, the girls were sitting in the floor and studying. It's the same as now it is. And it's really a shame that every 20 years, or let's say every 20 to 25 years, our country goes back to the same situation. But that's the reality. And that's when I started to do something for myself, for my family, and the girls around me. I would constantly think that why the situation in Pakistan, which is a neighboring country to me, is better than my own country, and what can we do to make it better? But for me, the future held something else. I couldn't really do something better for the girls around me because I got married, and it was another type of situation. When you get married in Afghanistan, you cannot do a lot of things being married. But when I came out of my marriage with my son, that's when I started my university, and that shapes a prominent part of my life. My university taught me everything that I know today and everything that I do today, because it was a modern education. It was meeting all the realities. Also, and it was connecting me with life at that time. I started advocating for myself, for my son, and for my family first, within the circles and the community that I knew. Not starting it with some international organizations. I just saw that what I have in my hand, I started with that. And then later on, I expanded that circle, which meant that education for girls. I started with my neighbors, with my family members, to talk with them on what is the barrier for them, the not allowing girls to have education, not allowing girls to pursue their dreams and get married first, and then after, maybe they would always say that they can pursue their dreams after marriage, which would really not happen. So that was some of the things that I started to address while having my son studying and working, all of them together. It was really hard, but I couldn't really do it without the support of my mother and late father. And to me, it's very important to have this process, to have male figures in this process, we can really not do it without the male members of our family or our friends. It's just, the world is not designed to just do it by your own self and just do it by females. So I really believe in that the process should be inclusive and we should have both of them. I have faced a lot of it precisely when I was deciding to separate from my husband, which people say that is very personal that I shouldn't talk about, but there is a need to talk about. Everyone would tell me that you would not make it. For me, in my case, I had a very supportive family. My father, my late father, was very supportive. My mother is still supportive. He would tell me, just look forward and be deaf to everything which you hear on daily basis.
Thank you so much, Khalida Jan. I really appreciate. So I invite Alaya to read this message, the message of Mrs. Amira Al-Gawabi to us from Canadian Heritage. Please read this out to everyone.
Dear attendees, I am pleased to extend my warmest greetings to everyone participating in the Afghan Women's Centers of Montreal's International Women's Day Conference. While I regret that I am unable to join you for this event, I am certain that it will bring about a very important dialogue and highly key topics and opportunities to foster greater inclusivity and the empowerment of Afghan women. By bringing together leaders from within the city of Montreal, this conference is marketing International Women's Day by bringing critical issues to light, by moving beyond conversation on these topics and exploring opportunities to take tangible actions. You are working towards providing greater support for those who are most marginalized in our communities. I find this year's theme, Embrace Every Voice, Afghan Women Leading the Path to Inclusive Futures, to be particularly powerful and relevant today. We know how challenging it is for racial minorities to navigate systemic injustices, whether it be at school, at work, and in their communities. For women from religious minorities, the barriers faced are even greater. That is why organizations such as the Afghan Women's Center are so essential, as they continue to provide resources and support for the women who need it most. I am happy to share that this mission also closely aligns with the work I have been focused on since being appointed on as special representative on combating Islamophobia. This includes continuing to acknowledge and raise the intersectionality of Muslim women in Canada and why thoughtful policy solutions are required to ensure they have the same opportunities as everyone else. Though engagement with communities from across the country, I am working with government across the country. I am working with government leaders to collectively pursue a safer, fairer, and more equitable Canada for all. I wish you all the very best for an enjoyable and productive event and look forward to continuing to work with you on these important issues moving forward. Happy International Women's Day. Sincerely, Amira.
So now we'll move on to our final speaker, final testimonial from Robina Azizi. So Robina Azizi is an 18-year-old advocate from Afghanistan who is determined to promote girls' education. She started an organization called Girls on the Path of Change at the age of 17 to provide access to online classes.
This problem, all of these issues are faced by hundreds, by thousands of Afghan immigrants who have moved to another country such as Iran or Pakistan, but they faced poor conditions as these as well. Let us not forget the plight that Afghan women face even when they live in neighboring countries. As a a young girl, as a young Afghan girl, I just want to say that our sisters in Afghanistan need your help and the support of your organizations.
Well, thank you so much, Holiday. I really appreciate you've been so much helpful for me. It is not an easy thing, sorry. It is not an easy thing, to manage an hybrid event. There's a lot of, tech challenges going to come up, but we're really thankful for the, the Concordia University, the tech department, especially Mr. David. Thank you so much that he's helping us from Concordia. So I will just go to the closing remark. As we draw to a close on this remarkable event, I stand before you with a heartfelt with gratitude and admiration for each and every one of you who have contributed to its success. To our beloved speakers, your wisdom, insights, and passion have illuminated our minds and inspired us to reach greater heights. Your presence has been the foundations of this event, and we are immensely grateful for your invaluable contributions. To all our attendees, thank you very much for your participations. Your energy and presence have truly brought this event to life.